Welcome to Technology for Humans, tech through the eyes of its leaders. All right, hello and welcome. So today we have Matt Solt with us today. And Matt, do you want to maybe do your own introduction? Because I think that's only fair.
My name's Matt. I've been a Rubyist for about 20 years. And I recently started writing the Ruby AI newsletter to try to promote the next wave of development in the Ruby community and get new developers excited to build with Ruby and help them out with new AI-assisted developer tooling.
Fantastic. And that really is I think that's such an important contribution. And we're going to dive right into that in just a moment. First of all, I think most importantly, no, not most importantly, but where are you dialing in from? Because that just looks beautiful, that space behind you.
I'm dialing in from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. It's about 2 miles to the east of me. We had what used to be Bethlehem Steel, which was at one point the largest steel producer in the world. And 2 miles in the other direction, we had Bell Labs, which was essentially the original Silicon Valley mass producing transistors.
Right.
So it's an exciting area with a lot of great history, and it's a fun place to be.
Yeah, great. Is that the area you've grown up in?
Yes. Yeah, I'm originally from Bethlehem.
Amazing. Fantastic. Good. All right. So most importantly then, not where you're from, although that's great, is the Ruby AI newsletter. I've got to tell you, I think, I look at that and two things strike me. One is how much work it is to put together a newsletter. I think that of all of the Ruby newsletters that go into my inbox, I'm just astounded at how much work and effort goes into curating
thank you very
the
much.
articles. The other thing is, of course, it's so heartening to see just how many contributors there are, that you not just fill up a newsletter, but it overflows.
Right. Yes.
There is a lot, and that's weekly.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate to have to leave some stuff out sometimes, but that was my hope when I started it, that the content would become overflowing, and it really has. The pace of development over the past 6 months has just exploded, and there's so many exciting developments now that I look forward to writing it every week.
Amazing. How do you find the articles, and how do you judge what goes in and what makes the cut?
I have a pretty big list of RSS feeds that I follow, and then there's some Google searching and a lot that I source from Twitter, and people also send me content that they would like included, which is great. That always is a huge help if you send me something you want in the newsletter.
Right. Yeah.
But one of the motivations I had for starting the newsletter was to see how much of it I could automate. And so I've been doing a lot of work in that direction, building a database of Ruby developers and organizations, and then going out and getting their blogs and their socials and aggregating all of that information so we can get a comprehensive look at what's going on in the ecosystem right now.
So I think you're probably the person best placed in our community to answer this question, which is, where are we at? Tell me first how Ruby sits with AI, because I think I know your opinion on that. But tell me, how does Ruby play with AI?
I think as far as the generative AI space, we've created some of the nicest DSLs and libraries and admin interfaces for working with that, which is really phenomenal. But AI is a much broader set of technologies, and there are a lot of gaps in the Ruby ecosystem for that. And part of what I'm working on is identifying those gaps so we can figure out where best to focus our attention and our development going forward.
Right. And so you have people that you work with that are contributors that are filling in those holes?
Not yet. It's there's still a lot of work to be done to figure out where that is. And there are a lot of individual efforts right now, and I would like to start some new community efforts to fill in those gaps.
What does that consist of? Like, does that include getting existing and long-term developers into a room and saying, here's some of the things that we need and letting them go for it? Or is it all about getting people new in at the ground level?
I think it's both. It's very important that we get new developers into the ecosystem, and I'd like to talk about that a bit then. But as
please.
far as experienced developers and what we need in the Ruby AI community, we probably need some kind of working group so that we can focus our efforts, because there's a lot of overlap right now. A lot of people are working on the same client libraries, the same domain problems. And when you have a lot of individual efforts like that, it's not really beneficial. It would be better if we had a focused vision and path going forward to really tackle Ruby in the age of AI.
Right. Some direction to say, okay, you work on this, I need some help on this area over here, that sort of thing.
And we've seen that in the past. I mean, look at Rails. I mean, that is just an incredible community effort that it continues to be amazing today. The announcements from Rails World today were phenomenal. I'm so excited with the direction that Rails is going in, and I think it has a very bright future. But Rails is not AI, and we need to figure out what the Rails is for the AI stage.
Right. Do you work with the Ruby Central committee, or is that something that's on the agenda for the future?
I would like to. I worked with Ruby Together before they merged with Ruby Central, but I haven't done any work with Ruby Central. But once I have more data to present to them, I definitely plan to reach out to them and show them what I'm working on.
Yeah, I think that would be an obvious thing. And yeah, I think that is well worth their efforts as well.
Yeah. Oh, and they're doing amazing work to support the community. And we're so lucky to have them.
Yes, we are.
Doing the work that they do.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so let's jump on to that next topic then, which is getting new developers in at the ground level. I think it's something that is a little bit missing in our community. We have some amazing tools, like Ruby is incredible, Rails obviously is incredible, and we have a population of very seasoned senior developers and a lot less junior developers. I think that would be fair to say. That's anecdotal. That's just my view of things when I go to conferences, when I speak to people, when I'm hiring for staff, all of that. So what's your view?
I've been looking at the data. So I've been mining a lot of GitHub data and looking at the flow of signups from the inception of GitHub. Essentially, people that sign up for GitHub and at least try out Ruby. So when you look at that complete data set, that was about 950,000 developers that have signed up for GitHub and tried Ruby. The problem was that, or the problem is that it spiked in the 2010s, and there's been a dramatic fall off. So as far as new developers signing up now that are trying out Ruby, it's down by at least an order of magnitude from its peak, which is a huge problem. People are not going into Ruby right now, which the state of the Ruby community as a whole is extremely strong right now. As far as I know, the top public Ruby companies have over a $500 billion market cap. I mean, Ruby is an economic powerhouse.
Right.
So there's that evidence, and then there's more anecdotal evidence, which is looking at the job postings and the job listings coming out, and it's roughly like 1% are looking for junior developers, which is it's not acceptable. I mean, these organizations have the capital and the ability to hire and mentor junior developers, and they need to do that. They need to start doing that now.
Right. That's a serious problem. And I didn't actually realize the actual numbers on that, obviously, like just how serious that is. It's like saying the country relies on truck drivers moving goods around, but we're not hiring any new truck drivers.
Right. Yeah, that's going to affect the future of Ruby more than anything else. Is we need more people working with it. And I think it can be one of the most powerful languages in the age of AI because it's simple to get started with. So I don't know. I don't think that it's just people in general not wanting to get into programming. It may just be the new wave of generative AI coding that people are just more interested in trying that, and that just lends itself to Python and JavaScript more. But we need to figure out.
What happens is if you don't know and you just say to the tool, "Build me an application," it's gonna pick something like that. It's gonna pick JavaScript framework.
Right. It's not going to pick Ruby. So that's a big issue that we need to work on. And I'm I don't have an answer yet for how to solve that, but looking at ways to get people started with that. That was going to be
my next question. What do we do about it?
Well, my priority right now for the next week at least is writing a Claude Code for Rubyists tutorial, where we look at a lot of the best practices that existing Ruby developers are using now with Claude Code and building their applications. And I want to cover everything from setup to integrating MCP servers to custom bash scripts, so that you can go through an entire workflow with Claude Code where you're generating the product or the feature requirements, you're having it generate the code, you're running tests, you're running linting, you're running verification, and you're having it write documentation and show that loop to new developers so they can see, okay, this is how you do it. Because there's a huge disconnect between what the top Ruby developers are using AI for right now. Some of them have $10,000 a month plus spends, and I wouldn't expect any new developer to try to go towards that level. But then there's the other end of the spectrum where people are not embracing AI, or they don't know how, or they're just using it to answer questions or solve problems, which is a great start too, by the way. But I want to showcase the entire workflow to try to help people get started with Ruby and AI tooling.
Right. And then we've got to make sure that tools like that or resources like that are promoted where people need to see it. Like, how do you get that out to the community? Like, I'm sure that most people in our community know who you are, but it's outside of that that's the problem.
Right. And I don't know where to go to present that, to promote that kind of content. That's an issue I'm struggling with. I don't really know how to market this content or the newsletter outside of the community. I'm not sure where new developers are going for information right now. I don't know the answer to that.
Right. Last time we spoke,
I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, or if with reaching out to new developers.
I don't have a lot of thoughts. Last time we spoke, I mentioned to you that we were, Reinteractive, that is, was intending on doing an Install Fest, which is a series of short 2-evening programs where we get brand new CS students or hobbyists or anybody into a room and get them started on Rails. Like, that's the idea. We've done this in the past. It's been extremely successful. And I've just had some hurdles in setting it up newly. However, having said that, I got a lot of interest from two groups. One was the Rails Foundation, who said they would be interested in assisting on that, which I think is enormous. And the other one is Heroku. So I have some friends in some developers and other people, executives within the Heroku team. And they were interested in helping on that as well. So between those two, we have some corporate buy-in or some financial buy-in. Is that enough? Probably not yet, but I think we need to just get one or two running. Okay, that was successful. We got 10 or 12 people interested in Ruby. Now let's multiply that out. Okay, the investment in that was X number of dollars. Go back to those two groups and say, okay, we spent this money. Here's what we got in return. Let's do another one over here and another one over here, and start making it into an international thing. That would be one way to do it. Like if we did install fests in San Francisco, as an example, where the founders are and where new applications are being built and grown, then and we get developers there interested. Here's a great tool that you can use for Ruby is a great tool for building with AI. I don't know exactly what the slogan would be and how to do that. Maybe we need to lean on some of the the marketing minded people in our community. Jim Remsick is one that comes to mind that could help on, turning that into something.
Yeah, and I think that would be incredibly valuable for the future. And yeah, we need to simplify the process. I think one thing developers need to realize now when they create, tutorials or content, you have to write for two audiences. You have to write for humans, but your content also has to be readable and possibly executable by the large language models, because that's how people are going to interact with the content going forward and how they're going to interact with languages and tutorials.
So when you say build for humans, what does that mean?
Well, that's your typical blog post or your book or your tutorial or your video course. And I'm seeing the beginnings of it. So I've seen a lot of AI assisted courses coming out for Ruby, which is great. So you can get real-time feedback on what you're working on. But if you publish content, you should be able to easily import that into your coding agent and have it, answer questions for you, run pieces of the tutorial, figure out errors and issues. So you have to create it structured for machines. For example, with the LLMs.txt format, you should be publishing your content in both formats, the blog post and the machine readable format.
Right. And then you have the best opportunity to spread it as widely as possible. Yeah. All right. So when it comes to Ruby AI, I assume you have played around with other languages and assessing Ruby against other things. Is that correct?
To some degree. I've been pretty heads down with Ruby and looking at what people in the community are doing. So I haven't had a chance, at least in the past 6 months, to use any of the other AI tooling outside of Ruby. But I have a degree of familiarity. I'm familiar with. I'm familiar with a lot of the tooling outside of the ecosystem. One thing that came across my desk this week was something called Laravel Boost, which is a collection of MCP development servers for Laravel that handles a lot of what I'd like to see as part of that Claude Code workflow. Things like reading files, executing code samples, testing, verification, all of those different aspects of development, they've kind of packaged up into a single MCP server platform that you can install and then start building Laravel applications with AI.
Right. That actually gives me an idea. A lot of people that I speak to, a lot of developers and senior developers have come from originally PHP, like back in the day. I'm not talking last week, like, 10, 15, 20 years ago, come from PHP. Maybe that's a target market today as well to get new developers
absolutely.
in. Yeah, because you can target senior or mid-level developers on PHP and Laravel and bring them across. Anyway,
people hear things about Rails, but they've never actually tried it. And then when they try it, they're like, this is amazing.
Yeah, right. That's what happens, right? Every time someone does that, the first time they go, oh my God, this is what I've been looking for. Yeah, that's right. All right. So obviously there's a ton of content in the newsletter every single week. And if you're listening to this and need to sign up, how do people sign up real fast? How do people get the
if
newsletter?
If you go to roboruby.com, you can sign up there for the newsletter. And the archive is there. You don't have to just read the current issue. You can go back. There's a ton of great stuff in the older issues.
Great.
But
you've been publishing for how long?
roboruby.com. 6 months.
6 months. Okay, great. What are some of the interesting things you've published recently? I know that's hard because there's so much every week, but what are some of the, you go, that's incredible?
That's a great question. I kind of want to promote everybody's efforts. Certainly I'm excited about a couple in particular. One is the DSPY port of Ruby, which is dspy.rb. That's the pace of development of that library has just been phenomenal. And of course, there's Ruby LLM. That's got such a clean interface. And there are some similar libraries like that, like Rakes, Rafe, Active Agent. I don't want to leave anybody out, but
no.
I'm trying to think right now on the spot. But those libraries are under active development and turning out just a crazy amount of new features.
Right, and they're getting a lot of interest too. All those ones that you mentioned, yeah. One that you mentioned, I think it was just today actually, is Tidewave.
Yes, Tidewave is an in-browser coding agent that builds Rails applications interactively. So you have the prompt on one side of the screen and then your application on the other, and you're chatting with it. You're asking it to make UI adjustments in real time, and you get real time feedback because it's instantly updated. And that's built with a lot of MCP servers that it's just started raining here. I might have to move inside. But it was a beautiful day. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm under. Yes, I'm under. Okay. Under an awning, so hopefully I'll be okay.
Okay, and I can't hear any of the rain, so that's good.
Okay, that's good. But Tidewave is an incredible interactive experience, and I'm really excited what Jose Valim is building with that. It's truly a phenomenal experience.
I like that idea of the instant feedback. Like you make the change, you can see it straight away.
Yeah, and I think that's the future of coding. I mean, the quad code terminal is great, but you want to see instant feedback. You want to see, what changes have been made and know that it's actually going in the right direction. So the value proposition of Tidewave is through the roof.
It's one of the problems new developers have where they don't fully understand the code that's being written, so they can't read it as you or I would be able to read it and understand what each step is doing. And so they could make numerous changes and find that it's not working. And then what do? Like, how do you backtrack on that?
It almost reminds me of the wonder of the initial Heroku experience where you're pushing something and seeing it live and getting feedback. And that's definitely the future.
Absolutely. It reminds me of my early days using Dreamweaver.
Yes.
That takes exactly me back. How I did it. I think it was F10 from memory bound to the FTP server. So I just hit that every few seconds and see the result. Anyway, that was back in the old days.
It's an exciting feeling.
You can still get Dreamweaver, by the way. I saw it the other day.
Yeah, I think you can. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, I don't know who's still using it, but someone is.
I'm sure someone is.
Yeah. I by the way, I think Adobe missed something there, not bringing that into the
they did.
Modern age.
They really did.
Yeah. Anyway, enough about Adobe. Tidewave, that's a great product, and I think there's a lot of future there. I'm going to have to speak to Jose. I think that's someone that
he would be a great person to have on the podcast, and what he has planned for the future is so exciting, and I wouldn't be surprised if it became an entirely Heroku-like experience where you're chatting and building and deploying all in one interface.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's so much because I speak to so many different people, right? And I get so many great ideas, and I have all these projects that I start as inevitably, like everybody. You start all these projects because you get interested. I want to do this. I started building a perceptron. Do you know what a perceptron is?
No, I don't.
A perceptron is in the 1950s, I can't even remember who it was, invented a single neuron and named it a perceptron. And so a large language model is built up of millions, billions of these perceptrons. So a perceptron is like a physical thing you can build with electronics. Using inputs, change the weights and the bias and get an output, basically. You can build one in Python, of course. You can just code it, but building a physical one, which is what the original one was. Anyway, it's
did you use Raspberry Pi? How did you go about that?
No, it's so much simpler than that, because you have to imagine what was available back then. So it's the inputs are just two switches, on-off switches. Obviously, a electrical input, 2 switches, and that feeds into just what's called a summer, which adds up numbers, electronic summer, and then that feeds into 2 potentiometers, which change the bias, the weights, and then that feeds into a bias, and then that just lights an LED if it's on, or doesn't light it if it's off, basically.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And then from there, literally, you could build that into an entire neural network.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could add just nodes and nodes and nodes. But I wanted to do it because, you read about these things, but how does it actually work? Understanding what's under the hood,
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
And that's how you figure stuff out. Just experiment and build. And
yeah.
That's the
when
best
I've got
way
it
to
properly
learn.
working, I'll definitely get it into a video, because when I decided I wanted to build one, I obviously started looking around for blueprints and, the schematics somewhere. And I couldn't find one anywhere. Like, it's not
Really?
a thing that exists, at least not readily. So I've been figuring it out with the help of my...
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's good fun. Anyway, this podcast is not about me. One thing I will say, Matt, is I remember doing electronics when I was much younger. I haven't touched a circuit board or a breadboard for a long, long time. And I remember the resistors and the capacitors being a lot easier to read. I'm like holding a... I can't
that writing is pretty tiny.
It is. It definitely is. All right, back to you. Back to you. How did you get your start in Ruby? Where did you start from?
Oh, that's a great question. So I was in sales and marketing at the beginning of my career, and I had a project where I had to research ultra high net worth individuals and build a database of those people. So at one point, I hired a computer science professor from a local university to scrape the SEC database and essentially identify all transactions made by individuals over $10 million. So $10 million trades. So we could identify people with those kind of assets. And within a week, he came back with like a 2-page Python script that had downloaded and parsed and processed the entire SEC database and was giving me real-time updates. And this was 20 plus years ago. And so I was just blown away by the power of programming at that point. I had tried for many years to get into programming. I tested out all the languages: Java, PHP, HTML, CSS, C, Basic. I went through them all, and none of them really appealed to me. I couldn't see myself writing that kind of code for the rest of my life. And then that script came along, and I was like, okay, programming is so powerful. I have to learn how to do this. And, as soon as I went online, everything I saw was Rails, 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 Rails. Like DHH had just launched this new web development platform. And I went right into the DSL, and I said, okay, this all makes sense. It makes intuitive sense. It's straightforward. It's simple to use with the generators, and started right away learning that. And it just, programming languages finally clicked then at that point.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting. So that was pre 1.0 on Rails. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then you built a career around Ruby.
For the most part, I've primarily used it to support sales and marketing and business operations. I ran an electrical construction firm that specialized in renewable energy, and I essentially automated the entire business with a Rails application. All of the safety reports, timesheets, progress reports, client reporting, everything went through that platform, and we were able to save a ton on costs because of that, and really scale up the business. So I've kind of used it in that capacity. I have consulted for organizations and built prototypes for people and worked on a lot of projects, but I've never really been like an on-staff professional software engineer. I've always used it for different kind of business use cases.
That's interesting that, the company that you built the applications for. I wonder if they still exist, those applications.
I think they do. There were two that were sold that I built prototypes for. One was Guidevine, which was a financial advisor matching platform. Another one was Get Outside Counsel, and that was a professional mentorship network. And I believe those two might still exist. I'm not really sure. I know a lot of the stuff that I built no longer exists or is available anywhere, which is unfortunate, but that's the way that software development goes.
Absolutely. But one of the good things about Rails is that it does keep up. Like, so long as you get the upgrades done, like maybe once a year, do the upgrades.
Oh, it's such an incredibly stable platform to build on. I can't imagine building with anything else. Like even the front end frameworks, I'm not going to badmouth anybody by name, but it's just been a nightmare with some of those JavaScript frameworks.
Right. Absolutely. And you don't know if tomorrow it's going to be dropped. Now I'm pretty much 100% default Rails stack. I've learned my lesson from deviating from that, and I'm not going to make that mistake again. Yeah. I lost faith completely when I started learning Angular 1. Then Angular 2 just changed completely.
And then they rug
pulled. Yeah. There's so many frameworks that come and go. It's one of the interesting things. Like you can have people who specialize in frameworks. Maybe they're a React or Angular developer, but they'll pick up the thing that's new constantly and then abandon it and something else. And you end up with all of these applications that do become, old and unused because of that thing about Rails. And one of the things I like to say, this comes from my production manager, she said it to me a while back, which is in Rails that legacy doesn't mean redundant. Like you can have a legacy application and it runs just as well and is just as workable as something that was written last week, which is that power.
Yeah. And that, to me, that's the biggest value proposition of Rails. Like, why wouldn't you build on a platform so stable that also has all of the latest features, all of the features that were announced today at Rails World?
Yes, here we are. Yeah.
Rails is still on the cutting edge.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. One of the other things that is obvious to me in my position and with what we do, that even a poorly maintained application, the developer can still pick up and get a feature written. Straight away.
If you use the Rails conventions, absolutely.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. No or little documentation written, and they're still able to get it done. Yeah, it's one of the incredible things. We get a lot of applications that are like that, like they've just been abandoned.
Yeah, that you got to save and resurrect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's sometimes not even that hard in the hands of the right person. We picked up one recently from an organization, obviously will not say their name, and because of change of management over periods of time, no one was looking after the application, but the application was still core. It was central to the business. It was the business. So it needed to be maintained. And they had given it to somebody who didn't really know what they were doing to try to start fixing, and they couldn't set it up. Like they couldn't get it running locally. After about a month of work, they still couldn't run it locally. So obviously they couldn't work on it. Our production manager, Matenya, who, she's very, very smart, but there's a lot of very smart people around, like she's, incredible. She picks it up 20 minutes later, has the thing running. And I asked her, what did you see in the documentation that helped you to do that? And the documentation was a single line. It was a to-do that said, fill this in.
I mean, I'm guilty of that too, so.
Yeah, I mean, you can do it on your own things, but when it's a mission critical application, this was for a fintech, mission critical, security was important, no documentation, no one looking after the thing. And, 4 weeks later, the application's in great condition, like it's running as it should and everything's upgraded and, the security holes are plugged and the credentials are removed from the code, things like that. Yeah. All right. So when we talk about you talk about Ruby AI, you don't talk about Rails AI. What's the key there for you? Like, there's a difference, obviously.
So Rails isn't AI software. It's not. You can build clients within Rails. You can connect a lot of these libraries, but I'm not really sure. There a lot of times, their Ruby and Rails are one and the same because you deploy your Ruby applications within Rails, and I think Rails is going to play a major part in the future of Ruby and AI. But AI is not Rails. It's something different. It's a different kind of technology. So the way that I like to think of it is Rails was a communication platform where you're communicating tabular or database backed data with a person, and then eventually APIs came along. So there was some machine to machine communication. But the future of AI is a much I don't want to say more complex, but there's a lot of different communications protocols. So there's a lot of different ways to communicate with AI. You can use your voice, you can upload videos, you can talk to it, and you can integrate it into web applications. And there are a lot of different communication standards that are emerging because of that. And I think, one of the core focuses for Ruby should be wrapping those communication standards in a single DSL and really figuring out what the future of agent to agent and agent to human communication is. And creating kind of a easy to understand, a simple, secure DSL for something like the Model Context Protocol.
Right.
So the difference between Ruby AI and Rails AI, there's a lot of overlap there, but I think you have to think outside the Rails box when we're developing the new Ruby AI libraries.
Right. Yeah.
We have to think in new paradigms.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I was actually going to say that the concept of the JSON format, you have to sort of remove that, or it just plays less of a role. I mean, it's still there. It's still part and parcel, but there are so many more formats for communication between devices and people.
Right. And again, JSON will still be a part of that. LLMs are good at reading and understanding and parsing it. But I think we need to think of what the future really looks like. It's not just going to be working with a web application. It's going to be something entirely different.
So does that mean the application's talking to a human as efficiently as it would talk to another application?
I think so. I think so. Again, I'm not sure, but I think, just if you think about web applications in the future of AI, I think they're going to have on-demand user interfaces for one. It's going to learn from the person interacting with that application. And so one person's dashboard is going to look entirely different from another person's dashboard. Same with communicating with where applications communicate with people. You shouldn't get an email notification for every update in an application. I mean, my email inbox is just overwhelming. Like it's, there should be, the AI should decide, hey, which email it's going to surface for you. What's really important, and have some of that in the decision-making process. Same with text messages, and, humans should be able to deploy an AI layer in front of themselves that kind of weeds out all of the spam and unnecessary communications and just tells them what's important. And there are, of course, some dangers with that, but I think right now we're in notification hell. We're drowning with constant communications with Slack, Discord, email, text messages, phone calls. It's too much right now. And I would like to see, a more natural communication interface.
I struggle to think of exactly what that looks like. I get exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, I do too. Right.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge. That's the problem to solve right now.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. How do you present that? How do you deal with that? How do you make sure an important communication isn't lost, and the ones that are unimportant or rubbish go to the right place? I mean, Gmail does handle that, but not always well. Like mistakes are made and we have to be prepared for that. And then how does that user interface work? What is the future of UX? That, it thrusts someone like you and even me to a lesser degree into the position of being a futurist, trying to guess what that future looks like and then going ahead and creating that.
Well, I mean, that's you build the future that you want. Yeah. So that's the great part about being a futurist is, you have the ability to build something and share it with the world and influence the direction that the world goes in.
Right. Do it better.
One of the most exciting parts about working with Ruby and AI.
Yeah. Take me into that future then. So let's move maybe 5 years into the future. And what does that look like? Like, what is Ruby's position in that? And what does that look like?
I think the companies that have built, applications on Ruby that are, generating revenue, they're still going to be around. And I think a lot of the basic development and even the advanced development is going to be done with large language models. I mean, they're getting better. These development processes are being refined. And so, I think the big question is what's the role for human developers in that? And I think creativity is going to play a large part in it. But I don't have a great answer for what it's going to look like in 5 years. I'm excited to see what it's going to look like, and I think there's going to be a lot of interesting possibilities. But I don't know. I don't really have a prediction yet. Because
okay. All right. Well,
I go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is there a place in the future, do you think, where there is no developer in the loop, or the developer role is a very, very different one to what we consider it is today?
That's something that I rack my brain with all the time to try to envision what that might look like. And yeah, I do think it's going to look significantly different than it does today. But I do believe that there is going to be a human in the loop. So one thought I had today preparing for the podcast was that right now, if you're working with Ruby and AI, the business possibilities are endless. If you went out for the next month and talked to 100 local businesses and discussed their pain points, you're going to find so many different things and processes that you can automate with Ruby AI. And then you can sell that kind of as a recurring AI as a service subscription to them. And so I think that's going to be one role for the developer in the future, because you're still going to have local businesses. You're going to have small to medium sized businesses and there's always going to be a redundant process or a repetitive process that you can go in and automate. So I think my gut feeling is that 5 years from now, if you're an expert in these technologies, there's going to be unlimited work available for you.
Right. Yeah. So I think some of the roles you're describing there, obviously there's a sales role, like the guy that does the sales, a technical architect.
You would have to kind of be a one-person business.
Yeah. The technical architect, like that is a role that isn't disappearing anytime soon. Project manager is a little bit how I see someone who writes prompts. Like they're a project manager, someone who does it well, that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they may not necessarily have an engineering background.
Right. They just have to understand the problem, how to break it down.
And that's one reason that Claude Code has really exploded, is because it takes that approach. It wants to know what's your problem that you're trying to solve, as opposed to where you might be talking with Cursor and you've got to, give the technical requirements and say, hey, build this out for me. So that's a project manager will have to be a prompt engineer to some degree.
If I was a new developer getting into the industry today, maybe listening to this podcast even, what tooling would you recommend they use? Like, how would they start?
I would still recommend an IDE, a development environment, something like Cursor or Visual Studio Code or whatever they're comfortable with, so that you can actually go in and see the code that you're generating. but I would definitely have some sort of coding assistant open at the same time so you can ask it questions. I mean, Tidewave would be a great one to start with, because, as you're working, you can see your application and ask questions at the same time.
Right. Yeah. And obviously learn the language that you're programming in at the same time. I don't think there's anything wrong with learning a language through using those tools. I mean, obviously there's some fundamentals to get first, but to learn a language I learned a lot by using Stack Overflow. I'm not sure if you did too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I think that's a valid way to learn. Like, grab a piece of code, but understand it then. Like, okay, we've got this bit of code. It's not exactly what we want it to do. So how do we change this to do the thing that we want it to do? And understand line by line what's happening with that code. What is it instructing, and what changes would I have to make?
Yeah. And when I work with other languages outside of Ruby, I use the AI for that a ton.
Right, and then have it explained to you.
Walk me through the code, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what does this mean? What does this do? What does this keyword do? Yeah, all of that sort of stuff. Yeah. All right. So, I mean, we've covered a lot today, a lot of very important topics as well. And I don't want to lessen any of those by adding anything unimportant. So I think that is probably a good point to wrap it. Matt, is it? I know it's raining there. You're probably starting to get wet.
Yeah, I'm under an awning, but yeah, I apologize for that. I thought the weather was going to be pretty nice today, and it decided to rain on my parade.
Is there anything you want to say that we haven't covered today that you think is important and that perhaps I didn't ask?
Is it okay if I check my notes for a second here?
Yeah, please do. Absolutely fine.
Let me see if there was anything I didn't cover that I wanted to cover.
I try to make my questions as open as possible, but
we went through a lot. But yeah, I mean, just to circle back to the beginning, the Ruby companies have to step up.
Right.
They have to. I realize that sacrificing a little bit of profitability is never in the interest of the business, but I think we can build an incredibly strong future and foundation for Ruby going forward. And that's going to pay off down the line.
Yeah.
Because Ruby is one of I feel it's one of the easiest languages to onboard new developers. And at some point, if you have a Ruby application, you're going to need new developers. So we have to figure out a way to make the investment now and really prioritize, bringing in new people.
Right. Yeah, I agree completely. And that's a responsibility we all have, like everybody in the community. And yeah, absolutely. Matt, before we finish, what do you want to promote? I mean, obviously the newsletter.
I think that's the best spot for updates. I've got a lot planned and a lot that I've been building that I'm excited to share with the community that I think will really benefit the community. So, stay tuned, subscribe, and most importantly, feedback. How can I make the newsletter better? How can you get more out of it? People will reach out and say they love it, but I would really like to hear, how can I improve upon it, and what would really benefit you, and how would you get the most value out of the newsletter, and also out of AI developer tooling? What's going to help make your life easier?
Is there a way to contact you on that newsletter? Like if people want to submit something or suggest something?
Yep. Matt at roboruby.com. Feel free to reach out anytime. Happy to talk or chat.
I'll try to remember to put that in the show notes as well.
And yeah, any feedback would be deeply appreciated.
Are you taking sponsorships?
Not yet, but I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
I don't know what that would look like. Like, I want to keep the newsletter free and open for everybody, that anybody can include something in the newsletter. But yeah, at some point I would love for some organizations to sponsor it, because that will enable me to build even more tooling and content, and I think really benefit the community.
Absolutely. Yes. So if you're thinking of sponsoring, reach out.
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate your time today. And
Yes.
I hope
Thank
that
you so
people got
much,
a lot out of
Errol.
it.